Hi, beautiful people. Welcome to the Fort Salem Library, where we read you your fanfiction. So sit down or don't, relax or don't, and enjoy these stories in a way you have not before. We at Fort Salem Library do not own Motherland Fort Salem or any of the related characters. The Motherland Fort Salem series is created by Elliot Lawrence and owned by Freeform. This story is a work of fanfiction and is meant for entertainment only. We are not making any profit from these stories. All rights of the original Motherland Fort Salem story belong to Freeform. We also do not own Little Bat Pup, or any of its original characters and storylines. We did, however, get permission from the author to read their story. This story was created and written by Johannes_motivational_insults, and you can find the link in our show notes. This story is being read to you by me, Britt. Hi everyone. Sorry to interrupt your fanfiction, but we wanted to make sure that you know about the event that our friends over at the Outcross unit have put together. Come hang out with fellow Switches and very special guest Arlen this All Switches Eve on Saturday, October 29th at 5 p.m. CEST. There will be fun activities, some you can even join in on, such as the Impossible Motherland Fort Salem Trivia Kahoot, All My Witches in Their Stitches costume contest, MFS this or that, and there will also be an opportunity for some of us to tell our stories and for artists to share their fan art. A few more spots have opened up, so make sure to head over to our Twitter or Instagram where you can find the RSVP link. We'll see you there. Little Bat Pup Chapter 4. Sarah, as predicted, involves herself. The first week after her retirement isn't so bad, because she's busy with her own life, like moving off base and into her own apartment for the first time in her life. But pretty quickly the boredom sets in, and she starts butting in, like visiting the base and giving Tally all kinds of opinions about doulas and midwives, or showing up at the house with expensive bottles that are apparently so much healthier for the baby and even feel like a real nipple. Nikta smirks at that and asks Sarah if she tested it out herself, garnering a glaring response. Tally tells Nikta to be patient with her, that she's just excited and she means well. Nikta knows all that, but can't help the way her gut turns whenever it feels like Sarah Alder is treading on her territory. She does eventually give in, though, allowing Tally to propose the godmother arrangement she's so keen on. Sarah's reaction is almost comical, overwhelmed nearly to the point of giddiness on the inside yet so very restrained on the outside. Nikta knows her well enough to see both, and she suspects Tally does too. Still, it's cute that she's so solemn about it, apparently taking it as her life's highest honor and greatest mission. No, it's not cute. It's annoying. It does prove useful, however. With about 6 weeks to go in Tally's pregnancy, Nikta runs into a roadblock, quite literally. She's in Boston, meeting with some of her old spree comrades, and ends up hitting construction traffic on her way out of town. She actually left extra time to get home because they have birthing classes on Tuesday nights now, and she was already late once and Tally gave her hell for it. But apparently she's cursed or something. Nikta watches the clock anxiously as her car crawls forward in the line, finally relaxing a little as she approaches the front. She's just thinking she might manage to only be a few minutes late if she really hurries when the flagger steps in front of her, turning his sign from slow to stop. "Oh, come on," she yells, glaring at the guy through her windshield. "Are you fucking kidding me?" The flagger shrugs, a sadistic little glint in his eye that Nikta knows too well. He's taking way too much pleasure in this. She's surely tempted to push him to turn the sign back, but she can see the flagger down at the other end already turning her sign, and cars started to move through the single-lane area. She can't get through now without causing an accident, and she's trying to be better about not endangering people with her powers. It's too bad she doesn't have any salva. She could have just left the car here and fucking fly back to Salem. Fingers tapping an anxious rhythm on the steering wheel, Nikta checks the clock again. 6:41. Yeah, she's fucked. She does have one more option, one that she kind of hates. Still, it's better than making Tally sit on the floor alone again, deflecting judgmental and pitiful stares and wondering where her partner is and why she doesn't value her enough to show up. Nicta values her pride, but not above Tally's dignity. Nicta's a bit rusty with far speech, not having used it much since the war ended, but they say it's like riding a bike. She sure fucking hopes so. Sarah, she beckons, focusing her target in her mind's eye. Nothing happens for a moment, and her heart speeds up just a little. Trying not to sound too desperate, she tries again. Sarah, are you there? A few seconds later, she gets a garbled reply. Nicta? Releasing the breath she was holding, Nicta says, Hey, Sarah, I need your help. What's going on? I'm stuck in traffic coming out of Boston. Construction or some shit. Can you take Tally to birthing class in Salem town? Probably, Sarah says, sounding briefly unsure. When is it? Wary of the incoming reaction, Nicta winces before she even answers. 7 o'clock? God is above, Nick, huffs Sarah, her expiration cutting through the static. You expect me to literally fly there? Tally's driving herself. I told her I'd meet her there, Nicta clarifies. You know the place. It's walking distance from you. There's a brief pause before Sarah infers. You don't want her to go alone. It's a partnered class, Nicta reasons casually, fingers toying guiltily with the steering wheel. When there's no immediate reply, she adds, Look, she'll catch me up on anything I missed. I'll only be 20 minutes late at most. And then you'll sub in? Sarah inquires. Yeah. Another quiet moment passes, and the anxiety is starting to creep back into her stomach before Sarah answers. Okay, I'll be there. Nicta breathes a sigh of relief. Thank you, Sarah. Anything for my girls, Sarah says, and Nicta's jaw slips. I mean, you girls. Sarah quickly corrects herself. Or, you people, if you prefer. Stop talking, says Nicta, lifting a hand reflectively. Sarah's all too happy to shut up for once in her life. Imagine that. I'll see you in a bit, concludes Nicta. Then she severs the connection with a sigh, eyes squeezing shut as she thumps her head back against the seat. What the fuck? Someone honks behind her and she jumps. Of course now the asshole flips his sign. Motherfucker, I'm moving, she shouts at the rearview mirror, throwing her car into gear. Calm your tits. Nicta arrives at the class at precisely 7:14, slamming on the brakes and barely bothering to put her car in park before hopping out and running up to the building. She slows just before entering the studio, not wanting to look like a total mess, and ends up stopping short just inside the door. Sarah is seated behind Tally on the mats, supporting her weight and murmuring in her ear as the instructor talks them through a basic breathing exercise. Nicta isn't prepared for the rush of warmth to her cheeks or to her chest. She expected to feel jealous, and she does, kind of. But Sarah's touch isn't possessive, not like Nicta remembers it. It's all comfort, support, devotion. Tally seems to sense Nicta's presence first, eyes floating over to meet hers. The smirk on her face is what alerts Nicta to what must be a completely stupid look on hers, and she snaps her jaw shut just in time for Sarah to look over. Their eyes meet and Sarah smiles, affection and steadiness radiating from her every pore. Nicta thinks she might have to sit down, so she does. When the exercise ends, Sarah gently peels herself away from Tally, bidding her farewell with a hand on her shoulder. Striding over to Nicta as she stands from the bench, she remarks, You made good time. Yeah, scoffs Nicta. Didn't want to sleep on the couch again. Sarah tips her head doubtfully. I highly doubt Tally has ever made you sleep on the couch. Smirking smugly, Nicta asks, Because I'm so good in bed, or because she loves me so much? The latter, specifies Sarah, giving her a warning look. Said look softens slightly as a fledgling smirk tugs at the corners of her mouth, but both, probably. Nicta tries to maintain her own smirk, but finds it slipping as Sarah fixes her gaze on the coat rack by the door. Sarah takes her first step away and Nicta's hand snaps out, latching onto her arm. Stay, she says. I'll observe this time. Sarah raises a doubtful eyebrow. Are you sure? I thought you said I was overbearing. You are, Nicta says. Stay anyway. When Sarah's gaze turns decidedly curious, she plays it off with a shrug and wicked smirk. What can I say? I like to watch. Sarah's eyebrow arches higher at the obvious double entendre, but she mostly keeps her smirk under wraps. Then I'll be sure to put on a show. Eyes narrowing, Nicta tells her, just take care of her. That's all the show I need right now. Right now? Sarah parrots curiously, taking a sip from her water bottle. Don't push your luck, Nicta warns her. But she can't help noticing the elegant arch of Sarah's neck as she tips her head back. She hates that she can't help it. Wiping her mouth, Sarah gives her a nod of acknowledgement and a tiny smirk as she sets the bottle down. Copy that, Sarge. Hanging up the phone in the kitchen, Nicta swipes the go back off the table and begins frantically double-checking it as she hustles back to the living room. She has a tendency to forget things, and if she forgets anything, Sarah will never let her hear the end of it and how she ruined the otherwise perfect birth. Okay, Sarah's on her way, she says, setting the bag down on the couch and continuing to rifle through it. Glancing sympathetically at her wife slumped a couple feet away, she asks, You doing okay? Ever the trooper, Tally gives her a stoic nod. Ah! Jumping to her side, Nicta grabs Tally's nearest hand and begins rubbing her back. Breathe, Red, she tells her. Just breathe. You're doing so good. Tally nods to acknowledge her, but seems incapable of speech. She can only pant and whimper through the rest of the contraction, face screwed up, squeezing the life out of Nicta's hand. When it finally lets up, she collapses back with a dazed moan, sweat rolling down her face. Nicta kisses her hairline as she whimpers and gasps for air, brushing away the fiery sweat-slicked strands stuck to her forehead. Rethinking that epidural yet? Nope, Tally retorts stubbornly, popping the P for good measure. Nicta sighs. Tally. My body, my choice, Nick, insists Tally. I want this to be natural. Sarah understands. Drawing out a groan, Nicta tosses her hands in frustration. The two of you are fucking psychos. Not everything has to be as painful as possible, you know. Tally snorts. You just can't handle watching me suffer. Obviously, snarks Nicta. I did this to you, remember? I sure do, drawls Tally, her smirk downright obscene. Nodding down at her lap, she suggests, Maybe you can help me relax a little? Nicta's eyebrows arch. You know how fast Sarah drives. Better hurry up then, grins Tally, bedroom eyes in full bloom. A bit of the tension seeps from Nicta's shoulders as she laughs. She can't help it. This is too absurd. Kneeling at Tally's feet, she pauses with her hand at her waistband. You're crazy, you know that? Lifting her hips to accommodate, Tally argues. They say it can help speed things up. Besides, it's a natural painkiller. Oh, well, as long as it's natural, sasses Nicta, whipping the sweats and underwear down past her knees. Tally pushes her head down. Less talking, more licking. Nicta is happy to comply. She doesn't stop at that either. She should prime the escape chute, right? Tally certainly seems to agree, if the way she throws her head back is any indication. 8 minutes and 1 contraction later, a screech of tires alerts them to Sarah's arrival. Oh shit, breathes Tally, and Nicta redoubles her efforts. Tally's already close, and the urgency just might send her over. A car door slams outside and Tally's fingers squeeze tight in Nicta's hair, all but ripping it from her scalp. Fuck! Sarah's loud, frantic knock is quickly followed by Tally's loud, frantic moan. It sounds a little pained, not too different from her contraction moans, to be honest. Apparently it's loud enough for Sarah to hear across the house and through the door, because her knocks grow even louder. Tally? She shouts. Tally, are you okay? Another round of banging ensues, but Nicta's a little too busy with her own banging to pay her any mind. Tally's still writing it out, one hand locked in Nicta's hair, and the other all but ripping the upholstery from their couch. Nicta, open this fucking door or I'll break it down, I swear to goddess. Nicta bursts out laughing, her snort spraying stuff all over the place. Their poor couch will never be the same. Tally's too out of it to notice the mess on her thighs, in the middle of another dazed moan. At least it's the good kind this time. Fighting to catch her breath after the exertion, and laughter and general oxygen deprivation, Nicta pants out a reply in farce speech. She's coming. Chill out, Sarah. That at least gets the knocking to stop, but Nicta can feel Sarah fuming from across the house. Still breathing heavily, she steadies herself on Tally's knees and pushes herself to her feet. I'm coming, huh? Tally remarks just as she starts to stagger away. Turning back with a chuckle, Nicta fires off a sultry wink. What? It's true. Nicta only thinks to wipe her face once she's halfway to the door, but she pauses just before making contact, dropping her hand with a smirk. Scandalizing Sarah Alder is one of her favorite pastimes. Why not take advantage of a prime opportunity? Sarah takes one look at Nicta's face and throws her hands up. Seriously? What? Nicta asks innocently, batting her eyelashes. She needed to relax. Huffing as she brushed past, Sarah remarks, Nice to see you have matured in the last 32 years. It was her idea, Nicta says as she follows. I'm sure, deadpans Sarah. Ask her, insists Nicta. Hey, tell Sarah this was your... Sarah stops on a dime as she rounds the corner, and Nicta barely avoids a collision by sidestepping at the last instant. Tally is exactly how Nicta left her. Apparently 2 days to pull her sweatpants up on her own. Everything is hanging out in plain sight. Oh, shit, mutters Tally, a tiny giggle breaking through as she gives a sheepish little wave. Sorry, Jen, hi, Sarah. Sarah isn't in much better shape. Flabbergasted and visibly blushing, but the honorifics seem to kick her brain back into gear somewhat. Clearing her throat, she gives her head a shake and gets her general voice on. Okay, Craven, she says. Let's get you to that hospital. Tally chuckles, head falling back against the couch again. Yes, ma'am. Sarah blushes to the tip of her ears, and Nicta laughs so hard she's afraid she's going to dislocate a rib. Tally's next contraction hits just then, and they're flanking her in a second, grabbing her hands and talking her through it, just like they learned in class. She doesn't seem to be in quite as much agony as before, so maybe she was right about the natural high. When the contraction finally passes, Sarah helps Tally to her feet, and Nicta gets her pants pulled up. Then they each loop an arm over their shoulder and help her down the hall. Nicta needs to run back for that pesky go-back, but then they get settled in the Hummer. Tally sprawled out across the back seat with her head in Nicta's lap. Hold on tight, girls, Sarah says, whipping her head around in a quick shoulder check before throwing the vehicle into reverse. The jolt to get them into drive is equally obnoxious, and for a second Tally looks like she's about to lose her lunch. Careful, Sarah, Nicta barks. I've been puked on enough times in my life. That is classified, Sergeant Batan, Sarah snaps over her shoulder, keeping her eyes on the road as she floors it. Nicta chuckles, running a hand through Tally's hair to occupy herself. It's something to do to keep her from completely fucking panicking or jumping out of her skin in excitement. Nick, Tally murmurs from below. Humming absently, Nicta smiles down at her wife. Yeah, Red? Tally's eyes are big and wet, her smile dopey as she traces her thumb over Nicta's fingers. We're having a baby. Shit, is that what all the screaming was about? Asked Nicta, face scrunching obtusely. You're in labor? Throwing her a pout, Tally whines. Nick. Nicta breaks with a chuckle, leaning down to kiss her. We're having a baby, she echoes, fingertips tracing her hairline. And she's gonna be amazing, just like you. Tally smiles, straining upward for one more peck before relaxing back against Nicta's thighs. Her eyes fall shut as she basks in the brief moment of peace, however fleeting. Giving Tally's hand a parting squeeze, Nicta moves hers to rest on the bump, thumb rubbing soothingly over mother and daughter alike. Not long now, little pup, she says. Not long now. Please find the fanfiction you just listened to on Archive of Our Own, and leave the author some love. Without them, this wouldn't be possible, and we want to thank them from the bottoms of our hearts for creating these amazing stories and keeping the show alive.